Welcome to Sachs Realty's Tuesday Night Podcast, where we talk about anything and everything real estate. Each week, we deliver expert information enabling you to make better informed decisions while keeping more money in your pocket. If you're interested in real estate, this is your show. Hey guys, welcome to our Tuesday Night Podcast. We are live like we are every Tuesday night.
Here we are again.
Here we are again.
Yes.
Seems like, I don't know, are there days in between?
I don't know.
Tuesday Night Podcasts?
Sometimes it doesn't feel like it. That's all right.
The weeks fly by.
Weeks fly by.
So where did the inventory go?
I don't know. That
Housing
is the
inventory.
question.
We're going to talk about that tonight. We have a great lineup. It's a hot topic because there's a lot of controversy in the housing market right now. And whether you believe in the housing market crash, inventory is never going to go up and prices are never going to come down. We're going to talk about bailouts. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know if our guests are prepared for this.
I don't know.
I've done my research, my homework. I have charts and stats, and we're going to have some fun.
I heard your reaction while
Guys,
you were
we really
preparing.
appreciate you tuning in tonight and always spending your Tuesday nights with us. And inventory is so down across America. In fact, I mean, it's just, I don't think I've ever seen a housing market like this. But Melissa, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Todd. And wonderful to see everyone this evening on another Tuesday night. We are very thankful to have guests with us this evening from Washington, D.C. and Burlington, Vermont area. I'm going to introduce you both right now. Howard Salpeter lives in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad we could be here together. Basically, I'm a realtor in D.C. I live in Capitol Hill. I've lived here for 8 years, been a realtor for 12, and basically just love working with buyers, sellers, investors to make everyone's lives better.
Well, thank you, Howard. I know that we may have a difference of opinion in some topics, so it's going to be nice to get your thoughts on the subject for tonight. But thank you again. Liam O'Reilly.
You know, it reminded me when he just said from Capitol Hill, I think of like, I'm just a bill. You know, it was like,
What?
you know, whatever. I mean, that's, you know. Do they do that? Is that even a thing anymore?
I don't know.
Like the little guy, the bill that's wrapped up and he's hanging out on the steps.
I know what you're talking
Capitol
about.
Hill?
Yeah.
I mean,
No, I don't know.
Howard. Howard from Capitol Hill. You're not just a bill, man. You're a realtor, and we are so glad to have you.
So
all right,
glad.
Liam, I didn't mean to cut into your thunder there.
No problem. Hey, everybody,
Hopefully we'll
Liam
have
O'Reilly.
something. We're going to have any kind of song to like bring you in. Or...
I know. Well, Champ is the
Todd's in
lake
the
monster
mood.
here in Vermont, so I don't know if there's a song related to him or what, but that's all I got. But thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it. Liam O'Reilly, Vermont, economic realtor, real estate investor and agent here in the Burlington, Vermont area. Also have a YouTube channel called Vermont Economic Realtor. So really appreciate you folks having me on.
Are you a skier?
I am. Big skier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when I think of Vermont, do you do anything? I think of like Vermont slate. You know, like I think all the slate in the U.S. comes from Vermont. Maybe I don't know.
Pretty much.
And skiing.
Yeah.
Well,
I
welcome,
wish all
guys.
the rain we were getting up here was snow. I mean, that would be wrong time of
No,
year.
Awesome.
I tell you, I'm not much for snow, but I know Melissa didn't prepare you for tonight. So, I mean, guys, you're just going to have to answer the questions the best you can. And our audience is just, they're pretty vocal, even though they're keyboard vocal, but we're live, as you all know, that follow us every Tuesday night. Go ahead and comment your questions in. We're going to start off with a very hot topic, and we're going to dive right in and see where the differences, if there are any differences of opinion, because there is a massive topic going on right now, and it's a major topic, and it's called housing unaffordability. I don't think I've ever seen it as bad as it is right now. So many buyers are sitting on the sidelines. The inventory that's out there, though it has picked up, there's a major inventory shortage according to the buyer demand out there, and buyers would like to have more to choose from. They would like to have lower interest rates. They would like to have lower home prices because we've never experienced home price appreciation like we have. And I want to ask you guys, we're going to start off with this one and I'll start with you, Howard. Why do we have an affordability crisis on a home?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. I think that part of it is that, of course, the prices have become very high. The interest rates become really high. It's unsustainable. And I think that it's just made it very prohibitive for a lot of people to buy homes.
But why are prices so high?
Because there's very little supply on the market. And I think it goes back to the old supply-demand equation. A lot of people want to buy homes. There's not enough on the market. So when people bring the homes on the market, they're asking for top dollar.
It started a couple of years ago, probably 3 years ago, with some of the most massive price appreciation. What has changed in America? What's changed? We are in a population decline. If you exclude immigration, U.S. is in a population decline, probably the lowest in decades. Why is it that the last 3 years, housing affordability, home appreciation for the first time ever has shot up from, say, 5% to 25% and more in some markets, year over year increase? I mean, what's the root of it? What's the root of it?
Well, don't you think there was kind of the baseline has changed from the pandemic when things went up 30, 40%. And now the prices they start from that point. They don't sink down to where it was 3 years, 4 years, 5 years ago. It's a new reality.
Do you think it had anything to do with the Fed lowering interest rates to zero?
Oh, for sure.
Right. So
Right.
do you think they should have raised interest rate? I mean, when we're looking at the crisis that we have, do you think it's going to go down as like the biggest mistake in the history of the United States Fed, that they should have raised interest rates at least a year before they started doing it?
Probably.
I mean, it's so many. And Liam, before we dive, Liam, go ahead. Why do you think we're in this jackpot?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can go with it. I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes down to supply and demand, right? There's less supply than there's less homes than there are people who want to buy homes, and fundamentally that's what's going on now. But I mean, as far as at least what I'm seeing in Vermont, but as far as the Fed goes, I mean, I feel like that's a rabbit hole with them increasing their balance sheet over the past few years and really manipulating mortgage rates over, from the great financial crisis up through 2022, when they started rolling off their balance sheet and, they stopped buying mortgage-backed securities. So now it's more of a free market mortgage market, which is gridlocked the housing market, at least from what I've seen. And I think that's a big mistake. But
yeah,
we'll see.
It's interesting because when the Fed dropped the interest rate to just say zero, because I mean it was just about zero, that was the rate that banks could borrow money, and there were a lot of financial institutions that couldn't borrow that money because they weren't considered banks, and they changed their whole business, like Morgan Stanley, to become a bank so that they could take advantage of, free money essentially. And there's so many investors that got into the market. I don't think we've ever seen a time. And I mean, Howard, how long have you been in the business?
I've been full-time for 5 years, and I've been in the business for 12.
Okay. How about you, Liam?
I've been in the business for 3 years.
Okay.
So one of the newer, but.
And
yeah.
I got you all beat. So, I've been serving the housing market since 1989. I started out as a contractor building houses and doing contract work, primarily in residential. But the interesting thing is that, investors, we never glamorized making money on real estate like we have probably since 2008. There were a lot of investors in the marketplace, but until we started seeing, the massive mortgage crisis and, bundling those loans and selling them to Wall Street for pennies on a dollar, nickels on a dollar, and then allowing, these big Wall Street type firms to buy up all these, tens of thousands at a clip and turn those into rentals. And then we started seeing price appreciation on homes. I don't think we ever saw in the history of the U.S. where over 30% of the home buyers in America for years and years and years were investors. And, in some cities, like outside of Dallas, almost 50% of the houses that were sold in 2022 were to investors. And I think that, as we're looking at home inventory that is being gobbled up, you say that there's a lack of housing inventory. I think a lot of that has to do with because of the amount of investors and cheap money that has been out on the street. And the question is, how do we get that back? And I want to go over some stats here because what is your opinion, Howard, on, a lot of people say, well, and they come up with these crazy numbers. They say, well, you may get a 30-year mortgage right now at, 7.8% or 8%, depending on what your credit is. I mean, obviously you can buy it down and there are different loan programs. You can buy points and things like that. But obviously it's clear to say that 7.5% is not uncommon. And Joe, you could pull up what's on Google today as the average mortgage rate. But it's not uncommon to say a 7.5% loan, which is not a bad mortgage rate. But, a lot of people want to craft these messages and say, well, a lot of the inventory shortage that we have is because people aren't selling. And, and then they come up with these ideas. They say, well, this poll says that if you're a seller or a potential seller and interest rates get to 5.5%, there you go. Here we go. 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Thanks, Joe. And this is it. This is a really good credit score, right? This is Maryland here. You guys could check Google yourself, but up to over 700 credit score, you're looking at 8%, 8.057. Change that, Joe, to where we know America sits on average at about right there. Yep. And there you go. 30-year fixed rate mortgage average 8.23% today. You guys can check that out. Again, there's different loan programs out there. But my point is, it's not 4%, it's not 3%, it's not 2.74%, where we were, falsifying the market, really pillaging America as far as what they can afford. And then all of a sudden the home prices are going to run amok like we've never seen before. All these investors have access to this free money, essentially cheap money. They're buying up all these houses. And now whammo, the Fed jumps in, raises rates, starts in March of last year and doesn't stop. And, now we're looking at mortgage rates, just like I think, Liam, you said, the quantitative tightening and reducing mortgage-backed securities off of the Fed balance sheet is creating free market mortgage. And people are like, whoa, man, there's no way I'm going to invest in a mortgage. And I don't think it's ever going back to that again. But what do you think? What do you think about all the ghost inventory out there, all the people that bought second homes, all of these investors that have paid cash for inventory? You think investors should have been allowed to buy millions and millions of homes?
Yeah. That's a good question. It's tough when it comes down to people's housing. And I think the fundamental question there is housing a right? Do people have the right to buy homes, or should we allow these corporations to allocate their assets into the single family home market?
Well, we're in the real estate business and we love to help buyers and sellers. But the question is, should everyone have a safe roof over their head? Should they be able to afford with a third of their salary to be able to afford a home?
Absolutely. I think that they should. I think the problem's multifaceted, and it's beyond, at least I think it's beyond investors and It really comes down to, in my opinion, I think it's more of an inventory issue. And if we had more homes in general, there are these large institutions that are purchasing, like you mentioned in Dallas, buying up 60% of the home sales. That's crazy. But in a lot of other markets as well, like here in Vermont, big institutional investors aren't buying up a large majority of the properties, and a lot of what we've seen is just there's a lack of inventory, partly due to the higher rates and the lack of home sales, but also because of the regulations that are in place here in Vermont that make it difficult to bring new inventory to the market. And it's really it's a complicated
100%.
issue.
Yeah, it is 100%. I mean, that is a crazy part. And it takes so long. It can take a decade or more to bring a community out of the ground. And, I've built houses, I've developed land. And what happens is there's so much infrastructure and red tape. And, the government's going to have to do something. But let's take a look at some stats here. Because look, we can debate. There's, a solution to fix things, but I want to take a look at this Yahoo article. Report from Redfin found that 91.8% of U.S. homeowners with mortgages have an interest rate below 6%. And that, okay, you might say, well, no big deal. 6% is not that great. But let's dive in further. 82.4% of homeowners have a mortgage rate of 5%, below 5%. 62% have a rate below 4%. 62%. And check this out. 23.5% of homeowners have a mortgage rate below 3%. Before we go into the next article, I mean, when you hear those stats, that 82.4% of mortgages have rates below 5%, and then you think of, what's it going to take for a seller to sell with the current home prices? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, excuse me, I think part of it is that we're not really considering is that one of the biggest cohorts in the market for home ownership is over 55, is baby boomers. And those are the folks that have, a lot of cases of mortgages paid off, or they have very little mortgage left, and their houses are going to come on the market. And it could be because they're ready to downsize, they have a lot of cash, they're moving, whatever. And the interest rates are not so necessarily important to them. And a perfect example is I was talking to someone just this morning who is a senior, and she lives in Washington, D.C. She wants to sell her house. And she wants to move to a condo, and she's only looking at condo fees because that's what's important to her. She doesn't have to worry about a mortgage anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. There's a Forbes article right here. Actually, two different articles, but there's a Forbes article that says that 23% of homes are free and clear. And there was a Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development study that studied 28 countries. And I thought this was interesting. And this was done in 2022. The U.S. had the third lowest percentage of households that own their homes free and clear. And there's a chart right here that goes along. We can scroll down. Lithuanians, 83% of them, no mortgage. If you go all the way down to number 28, you have the Netherlands, Denmark, and then the U.S., 23%, according to this study. But there's another study, too, in this next article that says in 2021, and I don't know, maybe this is because a lot more people took on debt on their paid in full houses to improve their homes. But in 2021, 42% of all owner-occupied homes in the U.S. were owned free and clear, up from 34% in 2011. But like you said, of those who own their home free and clear, nearly 78% were owned by homeowners aged 55 or older. So, one of the things that I feel like we've learned in the COVID era was that people are going to stay in their houses a lot longer than they're going to go in nursing facilities, because a lot of them were separated from their families. And I mean, it's terrible, right? And I don't think it's going to be a long time before people think about, that went through that and saw their parents and loved ones, being isolated. I think we're going to see more and more people stay at home. What do you think?
Well, I don't think that it's just a matter of people moving into nursing homes. I think a lot of people in that age bracket, the boomers, want to move because maybe they just want a different lifestyle. Maybe they want to be near family. There are a lot of reasons besides just getting old and having to move on. And then those people, in a lot of cases, are going to be buyers of new places as well.
You think a lot of them are going to move their millions of millennial grandchildren in the house, or their kids, and consolidate and have multi-generational, households like we used to?
I don't know. We hear about that trend, but I'm not so convinced that's happening.
Well, millions of millennials have moved back home.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Liam,
It'll
how
be
old are you?
interesting to see. I am 26. I have two brothers that are, one is 22, the other's 24. They both live at home actually right now. They both, one's about to graduate from college. The other one's been out of college for about 2 years now, works, a regular sales job. And he's living at home for the summer to save up money. I mean, student loan debt is a big burden. That's going to be kicking back in soon. And if we see unemployment rise, and probably my brother is going to be one of the first on the chopping block if his company starts having layoffs. It might make sense for these families to, like you said, multi-generational households, especially, if grandma owns her house free and clear and can help accommodate.
Can I take that back?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Because I just was thinking that just a couple of days ago, we just sold a house in Frederick, Maryland, which is a smaller town in Maryland between Baltimore and Washington. And the house was being sold by a woman because she and her son wanted to buy a new home. Her son had a new baby, and she wanted to live in the home and be the babysitter. So maybe you're right.
I have, in the last week, I have a listing that, over the last week, excuse me, I think 3 showings are to multi-generational families that are, the kids can't afford to buy a house. So they're taking mom and dad, they're moving them into, a in-law type of suite situation, or it's the other way around. The parents are living in the house and the kids are taking the in-law suite. But I think this is crazy. And so I want to ask you guys both something, because I want to kind of go into, first I want to look at this Fred chart that shows inventory, because inventory has picked up. I mean, I'm not saying it has corrected to a point that's going to make much of a difference. But if we look at this chart, and this takes us really into, this is what Joe, what's it go to? July? Yeah. The end of July, right? So in July, the numbers, we can just say in February of 2020, we had 927,811 houses, according to this chart, is available active listings. In July, we have 646,000. So we're 698. We're well below where we were prior to the start of the pandemic. And I mean, if you could have bought a house in 21, I mean, you were still way better off than you were in 2019, if you could have bought a house, you were way better off than after the pandemic. But, it's important to note here that March was 562,000. So we're up 15%. Again, not great numbers, but we are seeing inventory rising. But the big question is, because we talked about student loan debt, and I want to talk about that because you're right, Liam, it's coming back to where these, a lot of the debt, as in September, interest will start accruing again on student debt, and the first payments are due since 2020. 3 years, man, are due starting in October. But yet, massive amounts have been paid off or paid down by government programs, and I want to show you all that here in a minute. But before, I want to ask you a question because, we're talking about lack of inventory. I'm telling you, we're in a population decline. If you take out massive immigration, we're in a population in the U.S. of decline, population decline. We have people having less babies today than they have in decades prior. I mean, the debt is ridiculous. People aren't having families until later in life. I mean, it's nothing to see people in their 30s or mid 30s or late 30s. They don't have kids. They're not even married, right? When people were getting married in their 20s decades ago. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that we're in a population decline. We have a situation where we have a massive, baby boomer population that Howard is saying, hey, look, they're moving on, they're buying condos, whatever. We see families moving together, but yet we have no housing inventory. But I'm telling you, there's a couple reasons for it. They're building tons of multifamily housing across the country. There are more skyscrapers, and there are more, cranes erecting multifamily, apartment complexes across the U.S. We're going to have a glut of that inventory, believe me, in these major cities because it slowed down during the pandemic, and now it's full speed ahead, and these things are being completed, right? And so we're going to have more multifamily housing, which is great for Wall Street investors, by the way. I think that's where they should be. They shouldn't be gobbling up single family houses. If anything, mom and pop investors, are great landlords. We do need landlords in single family housing, but we need people that are compassionate about people and don't just put them on some kind of a program where there's a 3% rent increase every year, period. The end, it doesn't matter. If you can't afford it, goodbye. We've got the Fed downward pressuring prices on housing, your shelter inflation, which is rentals. So we're going to start to see a decline in rents. We're already starting to see it as the glut of multifamily inventory starts coming forward. We're going to see more downward pressure. But the question is, what we're not talking enough about is the amount of bailouts that is happening and that it's occurring on a daily basis. And it's still happening from the Rescue Act that was put into place. We went from COVID to, mortgage forbearance to now we're writing 40-year mortgages and recasting 30% of their loan balance on the back end of the loan. And I want to look at something because I think you guys are going to be astonished when we take a look at this. And this was of July 7th. This is the Mortgage Relief Program. Let's pull that up. Treasury's Homeowner Assistance Fund, passed as part of the American Rescue Plan, has reached more underserved communities than prior federal mortgage assistance and foreclosure prevention programs. We're going to take a look at this chart here in a minute, guys, but the U.S. Department of Treasury today, and this article was July 7th, released Homeowner Assistance Fund, HAF, data through March 31st of 2023, which demonstrates a substantial increase in assistance to homeowners. As of March 31st, HAF programs made roughly $3.7 billion in payments to more than 318,000 homeowners at risk of foreclosure in the first quarter of 2023 alone. HAF programs distributed $1.2 billion in assistance to households, a 50% increase over fourth quarter of 22, demonstrating the program is continuing to scale rapidly as designed. This tells me we're going in the wrong direction. Let's pull up. So let's take a look at this data for a second. Let's take a look at this data. Let's pull this spreadsheet up. The link's right in the article that we just had up. The link is right there in the article. The first paragraph. There you go. All right. Let's take a look at this. Because this quarterly report from Q1, which is staggering, if we can get it pulled up here. We had, guys, total applications for housing assistance was 815,267 applications. All right. It breaks this down. And we can publish these links. You guys can check it out yourself. But it gives you a breakdown here of the states. You got it pulled up there? There we go.
Yep.
Make that, enlarge that.
Sure.
Have you guys seen this? Howard, Liam,
No.
you guys seen this?
I can hardly read it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
what do
think
you
it's
think
really
about
telling. It's really telling of where the economy's at.
Okay,
Like you were saying, of all these people. Yeah. Sorry.
Let's just point out, go back to that chart a second. Q4 report was 725,352 applications, and Q1 was 841,000, a 16% increase in relief applications. Applications that are coming in saying, we're struggling paying our mortgages. You think that has anything to do with, I mean, people in their houses? And look, guys, I'm not saying, look, you can take that down. I'm not saying, I'm not being your judge or your jury, and I think foreclosure is a terrible thing. But, you know, the White House doesn't want to see foreclosure. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but the White House doesn't want to see foreclosure. We got a big election year coming up here. They don't want to see. What would happen? What would happen if we weren't bailing out people in these mortgages? 3 years later after COVID, since the hit of COVID, we printed more money, by the way. I mean, I don't care which side of the aisle you're on. It doesn't matter to me. I think there's enough Democrats that are fed up of where we are right now. I mean, the numbers don't lie. We are in a state of an emergency in this economy. It's a state of emergency. Over 800,000 applications for mortgage assistance in the first quarter of 2023. What do you guys say about that?
What are you going to say?
Man, it's scary. It's scary. It's tough to, well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's it's hard to really comprehend what's going on. I had no idea.
I didn't
This is
either.
my first time hearing about it. But it shows that Americans are in trouble. And I think a big issue, too, is where are these people going to go? I mean, you get foreclosed on your home and you go and try to rent someplace, and you probably, if you can't afford your mortgage, you know, that mortgage is probably at a low interest rate. You got it at a lower purchase price. At least around here, you know, you're trying to rent someplace, you're going to be renting someplace that's a lot smaller, and you'll be paying more than what your mortgage is now. How are they going to afford that?
I don't know. I think there's, you know, the issue is that when people fall behind on their mortgage, they're not fixing things in their house.
Right.
You know, and what people say is, look, guys, here's the deal. I mean, we're just going to continue to bail people out. We're not helping the situation, right? It's like a lot of the systems in the U.S. has failed. You know, we know that bailing people out doesn't work. We know that a large percentage of people that are bailed out end up still defaulting, right? At some point, you know, we have to say, what are we doing here? And are we going to go in now and put people, you know, put heating and air systems and roofs on houses and things that people can't afford? Some people maybe just shouldn't be owning a home, right? I mean, I'm not saying that they weren't like student debt, that people aren't preyed upon and pressured and things like that to get in these, you know, but we say, oh, but it's not like it was in 2005, 2006, 2007. No, we didn't have these no-doc loans. Well, we got massive. If we didn't have these homeowner bailouts that we had back then, right? I mean, we can certainly pull up the data, but if we didn't have these bailout programs like we had back then, it would be worse than 2008.
Well, let me ask you a question. If all these 800,000 people were foreclosed, their homes would be back on the market, right? And those people wouldn't have places to live. So what do you
Why
say?
not? Why not? We had millions of people foreclosed on in 2008, 9, 10, 11. What happened? They had places to live. They rented.
Well,
That's
yeah,
what
so-
happened. Wall Street came in and bought their houses, turned them into rentals, and rented them back to them. That was the game plan. That was the exact game plan because, and I'm not blaming the Obama administration. They took it. Look, they just happened to inherit a collapse, in an economic collapse, but that's where it's like, at what point do we learn from our mistakes, just like student loans? What we've learned is that when the government steps in and bails people out, it doesn't work. All it does, there's a stat out there. I looked it up. Let's talk about income tax for a minute. You guys pay taxes?
Of course.
Right. What happens if we don't
We
pay
wouldn't
taxes?
admit it if we didn't.
Huh? Right. I mean, what happens, right? What happens if we don't pay taxes? Let's see. Let's take a look at this here. Joe's not going to pull it up. It's on my phone, but here we go. The average taxes that come out of paychecks in America: 16.2% federal, 4.99% state. It is fate. Unless you're in the 9 states that don't collect state income tax. Local income tax, 3.28%, and FICA and state insurance combined 7.8%. We're at call it 30% on average Americans pay out of their paychecks. 30% goes to taxes. You want to know why? Right here. Bailouts. Bingo. I mean, come on, man. I'm not a politician. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. Let's print more money. Look, let's while we're talking about that, I want to, because we talked about student loans. Let's look at this. Biden-Harris administration released state-by-state data on $39 billion in loan forgiveness for 804,000 borrowers as a result of fixes to income-driven repayment plans. You know what they're talking about? Student debt. Wow. You know when things started to get bad here? In 1972, the federal government, there was a basic educational opportunity grant was designed to reduce the cost of college for low-income students pursuing their first undergraduate degree. Now, I have no problem in helping people out. But when we have the government that gets involved in private sector and they tell people, hey, you're going to offer this for this price, what they do is go, okay, we'll do that, but we're going to raise the prices on everything else. In 1992, President George Bush authorized a pilot version of the direct loan program by signing into law the 1992 Reauthorization of Higher Education Act of 1965. So they revamped this in 1992. All right? You want to see what happened in 1992? Let's pull the chart up. Basically, this higher education amendment, expand. There we go. Higher Education Amendment of 1992, the federal government began to offer unsubsidized loans to all students. Now, here we are in 1972 in this chart. We were hovering right around $20,000, right? You've got all private schools. It's broken down, 4-year schools, right? Public schools. Our education was just hovering along until we got to, about 1970s, and then colleges started raising their prices. When we hit this act where the government said, we're going to finance these kids, they don't have loans. I mean, they don't have credit. They don't have jobs. They're just graduating high school. We're going to finance their 4-year colleges. They can pay later. They started to, the key here is they got into doing student loans, not subsidized loans, but just student loans all across the board. Well, what did that allow? Look at this chart. It allowed the colleges to raise their prices because they were giving money to these students. They were saying, oh my gosh, you're graduating, you can go, we're going to give you this loan. They have no idea what they're signing up for. The rest of their life, they're going to be punished, by this debt. And then the colleges took advantage of it. They took advantage of it and they started charging more money than they ever have and they ever could have done had the government not given them these loans. Who would have financed these kids? Who would have financed these kids? Who would have allowed the universities to raise the prices like they did? Who would think it's a good idea to pay a football coach $6 million a year to coach Michigan?
It's insanity.
I mean, I don't know if that's the
It's
exact
crazy.
number, but I bet you I'm not far off.
No, probably not.
You might be low.
I might
Yeah.
be low,
Yeah.
right? Come on, man. We're screwed up. We got our priorities all screwed up here.
Yeah, it's
Anyway,
nuts.
we'll talk about housing. That's simpler.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
College.
What are we going to do? What do you tell a buyer, Howard? What do you tell a buyer that wants to buy a home?
Yes. Is that the question?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something else.
Hey, Howard,
Well-
I'd like to buy a home. I make $42,000 a year. Will I ever be able to afford one?
Well, I think you should first of all see about, you have to consider how much money you have, how much money you have saved, because we don't
I
want
got
to get you in-
$5,000.
Well, you need to see how much money you have saved because we don't
I
want to
have
get you in a
5,000.
financial trouble. Well, I think we better look at alternatives. And I think I'd just be honest with the person.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, huh? Let's take some questions.
I wanted to start off first by, give me 1 second here. Liam, you have a follower that's on our show tonight, and
Great.
they
Oh,
are.
Liam, man, you got a fan club,
Can
buddy.
you pull that one up for me, Joe? I'm having a hard time with adding it to the stream, but it's Jefferson Johns said, I follow Liam, Todd, and Melissa. Each one of you are great, but definitely varying opinions depending on
but.
location.
You're great, but
You're great, but. Oh,
Hi, Jefferson. Thanks for the comment.
we just lost our
we
screen.
just lost our screen.
Oh,
I'll be back.
See if I lost my screen. Nope.
No,
It's Melissa's big laptop. It sucked all the power out of the building.
little technical difficulties.
Technical
But
difficulties. That's okay.
I guess while we're waiting here, Todd, the just bouncing off of college. I mean, the worst part I think about all that debt that people are getting into is it's not even, it's not giving them the benefit that they want. I mean, obviously, varying degrees make varying money, but I mean, if you just get a regular bachelor's degree and you could be 200 grand in the hole, like you said, you might be making 40, 50 grand a year starting off. And how long is it going to be until you make 100 grand a year? It's tough. It's a
I
bad
had
investment right now.
a buyer that called me today off of a sign, and doesn't have an agent. I'm the listing agent. I can't in Maryland. We can't represent both sides. Can you represent both sides in Vermont?
No.
As an agent?
No.
I mean, obviously, dual agency within the broker. But anyway, so the big question was, what are the credit requirements in order to buy? Which I'm not a loan officer. How much money do I need down? How much money do I need to make? I don't even know what I can afford. Basically, where do I begin? And what I start telling buyers is, look, what can I? The big question is, what can I qualify for? Right? They say, look, this is how much money I make. What amount of money of a house can I buy? Even because most people, they don't have any idea. The problem is that we have a lot of other issues and a lot of other bills that you pay besides your mortgage and your interest payment. So what I try and tell people is, look, you don't want to know how much you can qualify for. You want to first understand, what can I comfortably pay on a monthly basis for my housing, right? Because people get this, because look, banks, they'll mortgage you to the hilt, right? A lot of loan officers, if you're a loan officer out there, I'm not saying that you're like this, but a lot of loan officers will say like, oh, don't spend any money. Like, don't do, we want to watch your debt to income ratio. We want to make sure that we can get you as much of a house as possible. So you got to be impractical. Don't spend money. Don't cause debt. Don't buy a car if your car breaks down. Don't do these things because you're going to add to your debt to income ratio and it's going to reduce the amount of house that you can buy. And there just may not be a house that you can afford out there and you may not be able to buy, right? So it's really, we have to say like, how much money can you afford comfortably for your house? Well, I'm paying $1,700 for an apartment right now. And the median home price is $450,000, $500,000. And I have $5,000 down, in my bank account. These numbers don't work, right? So, I don't know, Liam, what do you think? I mean, what are you seeing in Vermont? Tell us what's happening to the average buyer.
Oh, yeah. Well, the average buyer is most likely not getting a home. I mean, before we got on the show, Howard and I were talking. The multiple offer situation is just crazy. Just today, had a buyer submit an offer on a property, starter home, affordable property, $300,000. It was pretty much gutted inside, so you're gonna have to put in some money up front to get it up to speed. There were 12 offers. My buyer was lucky enough to pay cash. They went $40,000 over. Still wasn't good enough. So I mean, if you're putting 5% down and you only have $5,000, how are you going to compete for that starter home if my buyer that was cash and was going $40,000 over, it isn't even good enough?
Was it probably an investor that bought it?
Up here it's a little, it's tough to know for sure. This property, I bet it was an investor because it was half gutted. But what a lot of people are doing is, if you're fortunate enough to have a family or to have money in your family, what a lot of people are doing is their parents are buying homes for their kids, or they pay cash up front and then the kids take out a mortgage for whatever they can afford based on their situation. So, investors are here, and that property probably was an investor, but that's what we're seeing a lot of here in Vermont.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I get the same thing. How about you, Howard? I mean, are you still seeing a big investor presence in
Not
DC?
so much in DC, just because of the prices here.
Yeah.
It's really hard for investors to get a good enough deal where they can make, renovate a place or rehab it and make a profit. So that kind of market's right? Really declined. Yeah.
People are exiting DC, right? I mean, a lot of people are moving out because they can't afford it.
They had been, and now they're moving back because they want the city life. But frankly, there's been a little mini exodus just because of safety issues in the city, which you probably have heard all about.
Why don't you tell everybody? I live close to DC, so we're Maryland, right? We're right next door.
Yeah, and it's not only DC; it's everything around DC. There's just it's a lot of crime, and a lot of people, especially young families, are getting scared and moving out.
So then let's talk about that. What are we doing about it? Defunding the police?
Well, yeah, we're not doing anything.
Come on, man, this is crazy.
That's the problem. It absolutely is.
I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I'll tell you what, I went into Walgreens. I'm embarrassed to even say why I went in there. I mean, I went in to get some deodorant. It wasn't today, by the way. But I'm like, I need some deodorant. So I went in and I had to push a button, okay? Because the deodorant guy, I mean, look, it's $4, man. It's behind plexiglass. And I'm like, this is crazy in Walgreens. So I literally pushed a button. You talk about embarrassing. Customer assistant needed in the personal products department. Customer service needed in the, right? I'm like, what? I'm pushing a button. I got a red light bounce. And no one's coming. And literally every 30 seconds, the same message is echoing through the store. Customer service needed in the personal products department. Finally, this lady comes with the keys. And I'm like, first of all, she's like, well, what do you want? I'm like, well, I mean, God help you if you want to like spend a minute and smell them or look at them or whatever, right? I mean, you better know exactly what you want because they're opening the cabinet and you got to grab your deodorant. I said, man, this is terrible. First of all, I waited like 4 minutes to get my deodorant. And I said, I'll never be back. And I'm like, this is crazy. And she said, you know what happens is that people come into the store with bags and they fill their bags up as fast as they can and they walk out. And if it's less than $1,000, the police won't even get involved.
Oh my God.
Go to Home Depot. Everything's under lock and key. What the heck is going on, man? What is wrong with us? What is wrong with us? Why are we, what is the deal here? Are we just accepting this? It's craziness. So you're saying people are moving out of D.C. because of crime?
I don't know that that's a big number. It's just, maybe it's anecdotal. It's just people that I know and heard of. It's,
well, you're a real estate agent in D.C.
Well, I haven't seen statistics. It's just.
But you hear what people are saying.
That's right.
I mean, come on. That's what you do for a living. That's who I want to ask. I want to ask what's going on in the people that hear it firsthand. Just like people want to come on this show and listen to what's going on in the housing market and that people have less than $5,000 in their bank account. And that's average people, guys. I'm not talking about people. People don't, they just did this student debt bailout, man. It makes my blood boil. I wasn't finished talking about that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's crazy because there were stats on this where you weren't eligible for a certain amount of this government bailout if you made less than $125,000 a year. Who makes $125,000 a year in America, right? I'm telling you, not the average person. DC makes the most amount of money in the country. The median income is $90,000. It's gone down year over year, not up. Maryland's probably second in line to D.C. This is where the government is, this is where the money flows from. This is where the money's printed for, I don't know where it's printed, but the decisions are made to print the money. So we're looking at, you know, now people are moving out of D.C. because of crime. They make $90,000 a year and they're like, well, but I can't live here. I can't live here because I don't feel safe. But what are we doing about it? We're locking up the deodorant at Walgreens. You know, Walgreens are going to shut down. They're going to shut down because people are going to buy stuff online because they're not going to deal with this. Just like people are not going to restaurants anymore because they're tired of sucky service and spending a fortune for it. I went out to a restaurant with friends of mine, and we went to this place that's famous around here for crab cakes. It was ridiculous. It was so expensive, and the service was terrible. And the food portions were so small. And I said, I won't go back. I won't go back. It's not a good experience. So the next thing that really is the big question here is we say, inventory's short on houses. Interest rates are up. Default is up. Bailouts are up. This is all okay behavior, I guess. But the big question is how many people are going to lose their jobs over the next several of years because people are just fed up. They're stopping spending their money where they're not appreciated. And, AI is going to start taking over because these businesses are like 26% of my payroll or 26% of my business expenses payroll or more. Some companies are 44%, 48% or higher. Over 50% of their business costs are employees, depending on what business you're in. And they're looking for ways to just replace employees. What's going to happen to the people now? Are we going to continue to bail them out?
I just wanted to make a quick statement, Liam. I did not mean to interrupt you. But the problem is that we are on a pattern of customer service lacking. AI does play a huge factor into that. I was just in CVS last night. There were 3 of those self-checkouts. Not one person is in there. God forbid you needed help. There's no customer service anymore. It's just all automated. Fend for yourself. Figure it out. And
still paying more pricing, higher pricing.
And still paying
prices
higher
aren't coming
pricing.
down because of it.
No.
Right.
No. So, and, put out your credit card because you probably can't afford it anyway.
And people are charging $1 trillion in credit card debt. Somebody said, like it was an argument that It was like what the chart last week is like 53% of people say that they don't pay their credit card every single month off. And, there's $1 trillion in credit card debt and like available another $4 trillion in available credit for these banks to give them more. I guess the banks feel they'll just keep lending money. They'll make as much as they can until they are on the brink of default. And then the government's just going to print more money and bail them out.
People are in a very hard position. I wanted to read this comment really quick.
Let's take some questions.
Yeah, we're going to do that. And Liam, we are going to get back to you because I know you're about to say something. Right, very important right there. But just this comment, a guy bought a bike off of me on Facebook Marketplace the other day, and he said he has his master's degree in computer science, and he was begging me for any work, even offered cleaning and yard work. Desperation. People are having a hard time. They're having just a very difficult time. Okay, Liam, what were you going to say?
Wow. I don't know. I was going to just circle back to what you folks touched on with the $1 trillion in credit card debt, the M2 money supplies. I'm sure you've talked about as well is decreasing. People have less money. This is a great example of what's going on in this economy. I mean, this is obviously just one subjective experience, but it's crazy. And at least what I'm seeing here in Vermont, I'm curious to know what you guys are seeing in your markets as well. The people that are buying homes right now, like we alluded to earlier on in this live stream, aren't the people that are racking up credit card debt and aren't the people that are really struggling financially. And I think the low inventory, there's, at least in my market, there's not enough supply out there. And that's kind of what's keeping these homes afloat, is the people that can buy homes are out there and they are buying homes, the ones who are well positioned financially. The people who are racking up credit card debt, they can't afford to buy the homes, and they're getting beat out by these well-qualified buyers. And that's kind of what's propping up the market right now from what I've seen.
Do you think those people they're even looking for homes?
Some of them are.
I don't think so.
Yeah, some of them, I mean, at least some of them have looked through me and have been priced out of the market due to higher rates. And, we spend months looking and submit offer after offer and nothing works. The stuff that they can buy that's in their price range won't qualify for the mortgage because it's not in good enough shape. So a lot of these people want housing. And I was thinking about this earlier, and Todd, I wanted to ask you as a developer. We talked about red tape earlier, and I think that's a big something that's stopping development, at least from what I've seen. And I wonder with, some of the housing crises that we've seen due to natural disasters, like we're seeing in Hawaii right now, all these people displaced, like we saw in Vermont. I'm sure you saw that on the national news with the flooding. A bunch of people were displaced here. Do you think that is going to sway these politicians and policymakers to, take away some of the red tape and maybe encourage more development?
There's so many special interest groups out there. When we talk about, who puts these politicians, if we look at how much it costs to campaign to be the president of the United States, for instance, right? I mean, you're talking about, companies are, putting people into office. And, a lot of the things that we have with housing costs are, just because we've had these lobbyists and these products and manufacturers that, have made home building so expensive. And these houses are sealed up tighter than a drum. You have to use so many different, products and, that you never used to have to use before. And, we're so concerned about these energy bills. We have no idea that how expensive these energy bills are and unsustainable that they are to maintain and to afford. And no one's looking at that, right? Because people have no idea how unsustainable it is. And, it's just like electric cars, they're going to get rid of, gas powered everything, right? Come on. When you realize how expensive it is to own and maintain and how bad it is for the economy, not the economy, the environment, to do the mining and fracking for the lithium and things like that. It's this special interest groups, man. This is what it's come down to, right? But here's the thing. We have so much government intervention in everything, it complicates everything, right? I mean, I can remember when, we have a guy, Ben Carson here, a local guy from Maryland. And, when Ben was Secretary of HUD, and a lot of people were upset with Ben, number one, they said, well, why is he even Secretary of HUD? And, because he doesn't have any experience in housing. Smart guy, he's a surgeon and, a brain surgeon, retired brain surgeon, but, very smart guy. And I remember I was at an event and I was talking with him and, he asked me, what's your opinion of the housing market and, housing, affordable housing? And I said, look, we need more affordable housing. And he said, we need to cut the red tape, just like after they did in World War II, when the government stepped in and lowered the burden for developers to produce affordable housing. We've gone, guys, what has happened here in America is that we've built more 2,500 and up square foot homes than we need. People don't need houses that big. So this is part of the problem. Houses used to all look the same. They were cookie cutter homes. They were 1,400 square feet. They were 3-bedroom, 1 bath, 1.5 bath, very conservative, affordable housing. And then through the years and the high development costs, these builders are like, well, if I'm going to spend 10 years developing a piece of property, surely I can't build a 1,400 square foot house. I've got to make more profit. The only way I can make profit is building a bigger home, right? Because that's where they make their money. So, we need to encourage developers and builders to, get involved and build more affordable housing. And that's another problem. People want affordable housing. They want to stand in line and say it's needed, but nobody wants it in their neighborhood. That's the other thing. They're like, well, I want affordable housing, but not here. So I think that, the bigger issue is we have to cut the regulation. We have to deregulate. We have to cut the red tape. We have to make a path easier to encourage developers and builders to want to get involved, because no one wants to take a chance on going bust and taking years of hard work and investment with engineer. The average engineer, I tell you what, here in Maryland, I was just talking to my engineer, there's a piece of property that I was looking at subdividing it into 2 lots. One lot, it's a subdividable lot, $40,000 to $50,000 in engineering fees to get this house or this lot to be chopped in half to make it 2 buildable lots. You've got impact fees of $2 or $4 a square feet by the time you're done with all the fees, by the time you deal with, school impacts, fire life impacts, economic impacts, or environmental impacts, right? You've got all these different things, now you're looking at, okay, about a year of a process to get this done, right? It's going to cost me, thousands of dollars to have a survey, to have a drawing done, to even get it submitted, right? And that's providing that there aren't any complications with it. And then the government's going to tell me where I have to put the house. So I'm going to look at what makes sense with dividing a piece of property, and the government's going to tell me where the building envelope has to be. They want houses clustered together. Right. So now we're looking at it. We're like, okay, these people are spending $800,000, $1 million, $1.5 million for a house, and they can high five their neighbor in the morning off the breakfast nook. Right. I mean, it's insanity. It's insanity. I mean, it's until we start to see, encourage these builders. And then let me tell you, these builders, a lot of the products out there are junk.
Yeah.
They're junk. I have never seen such poor craftsmanship in my entire life, and I swung a hammer. I would fail or throw half the contractors that I see building these houses in lightning speed. I'd throw them off the job. It's like it passes their, let me tell you guys, if you're buying a new house, you better get a home inspection. You better have a good home inspector, and you better get it inspected. You don't say, well, it's a brand new house. Why do I need a home inspection? The government inspected it. Huh. We find something wrong with every new house. Right? And then they force you to settle. They cram it down your throat despite whether you're happy or not. with the end result product, and they tell you that they'll come back and fix it. So you move in and they come in and destroy your life for the next 12 months while you have your furniture in there and 10 different people coming through fixing things. Right? Because it's more important that they get to the settlement table than it is to actually deliver a product with pride. And these builders, the audacity, are raising their prices because they know it's an inventory shortage. So they're like, screw all you people. Or they're going to give them a discount on a variable rate mortgage. I mean, come on, man. We got to be, it's almost shameful. Working in this business, it's almost shameful to see how things are going. I mean, it's crazy. I've never in my day, and people say, oh, well, and by the way, guys, I'm not a baby boomer. All your comments, are you sure you're not a baby boomer? No.
They like your rants, though.
I'm not a
Especially
baby
Charlton.
boomer.
Loves it.
I'm a Generation X, okay?
Just to make that clear, Generation X.
Right.
Thank you for the clarification.
So, anyway, not a silent generation either, as obviously you can tell.
No. Can we
I was
get to
talking to somebody the
comment?
other day. It was funny. A good buddy of mine, he was on a rant. He was texting me. And I said, this is not a conversation for text. He thought that I meant like somebody would be reading it, like Big Brother. I'm like, dude, I don't care about that. I'm just saying it's a deeper conversation. I don't want to like have the next hour conversation over text. You want to get a piece of pizza, then we'll
Right.
go talk about this
about it.
conversation. But he thought like, oh, what are you afraid somebody's reading your text? No, I'm a freaking podcaster, for crying out loud. I have 450 videos of the way I feel.
Some people get nervous about that, though. They're like, I don't want that on my phone. I don't know.
Give me a break.
We
I
have,
love it when I see the people that have the tape over the phone.
Oh, yeah.
You know, or they
Yeah.
got like they put their phone in their pocket so nobody can hear their conversation. I'm like, dude, you think that works? Shoot,
They
man,
do.
can
They
probably-
think it works.
They can hear what's going on in your house from your TV. You're worried about your
I
phone?
mean, or the Alexa.
That was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, guys, I was in a sales meeting a couple years ago. You were in that meeting. Uh-huh. And so you'll remember in a minute. But the agents were complaining. This was before COVID. And Zillow Group, we use this program online. It's called Dot Loop. It's a password protected, obviously fully encrypted program that we interchange. Back in the day, man, in the real estate business, you could leave like contracts laying on the table.
Yeah.
Then they came in with these privacy acts and said, you can't do that. We had like a file cabinet. You could like you could see what your fellow agent was even doing, how much the offers were and stuff. I mean, they'd leave them on the freaking fax machine. You could look at it and be like, oh, they offered this for the house. Oh, fuck. Oh, that's, not anymore, right? You can't do that. You can
Right.
be fined like $10,000, right? If they come in and find out that you have a contract that is not locked up. All that stuff has to be private. So anyway, it's all online. We use this program that Zillow happens to own right now. And
Right.
Zillow just bought this program. And Howard, I don't know what you and Liam use. A lot of people use different programs.
Mm-hmm.
You guys use Dot Loop?
Yeah.
Liam, you
Yeah.
too?
We use Dot Loop.
Yeah,
Zillow
so
bought
anyway.
it, you said?
Huh?
Zillow bought Dot Loop?
Oh yeah, man! Come on, dude. Where you been before
didn't
you
know
got
that.
into business?
Yeah.
So anyway, I remember when it went down because Zillow was buying everybody. Right? They still are, man. They bought Showing Time. I mean, they're just gobbling everything up. They're data hog.
Yes.
Right? They want to hog the data.
Yeah.
I can't wait until they start saying, hey, you guys with your Zillow Zestimate program. Anyway, I'm not going to go down that road. But we were in this sales meeting together. Everybody's sitting around. And we were talking about Dot Loop. And they had just bought Dot Loop. This is probably like a 2018 maybe. I don't know. You could Google it. But one of the
sounds right.
agents said to me in a very serious tone, they said, are we going to keep Dot Loop? And I was like, why? Why do you ask?
I remember this.
What's the point? And they said, well, Zillow just bought Dot Loop. I'm going, yeah. They said, but they're going to know everything about our transactions now. They're going to know when people bought a house. They'll be able to target our client in 7 years, and they're going to maybe sell their lead instead of me having an opportunity to sell the house. And I said, come on, man, you're worried about Zillow buying Dot Loop? The freaking television in your home, Amazon knows Google knows when people are getting divorced, when people are selling their house, when
Yep.
people are getting whatever. I mean, your freaking TV's listening to you, right? You think you got to worry about Zillow watching your contract program? Come on. They're going to Amazon's going to be marketing to you. They're going to be like, "Oh, you're getting a divorce, huh? Oh, sorry for your luck, but hey, you want to sell your house?" That's common, right?
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep. I mean, everything.
What
The
are we
phone's
worried
listening
about
to you,
your
everything.
text message,
Yeah.
putting tape over your phone
No.
for?
No.
Crying out loud. You guys put tape over your phone? Be honest.
No.
Be honest.
God, no.
Liam,
Never.
your age, you could care
Never.
less.
Right.
You
They've
put
been
your whole
watching us
life
since
online.
birth. Right.
They have been. They've been
Exactly.
tracking everything. Yes.
Hey, I got news for you. For those of you that put tape on your phone and hide in wide open, boy, they're going to have a list for you. They probably already do. Like, oh my gosh, this guy doesn't carry his phone. This guy doesn't have a cell phone. We need to watch him.
Yeah.
We need to watch him. We got to watch. But anyway, we put everything on video, so
I know.
you guys can hit rewind.
Yep.
Right.
We do have
Well-
this. Liam, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna. I think we were going to the same place with Jefferson's comment
Yep,
here about
yep.
Vermont.
Exactly.
So, Jefferson, I guess we've talked about a lot of issues, and so I'm not exactly sure which of the problems you're talking about, but I think a lot of these problems that you guys are experiencing, I guess, with the defund the police, like we talked about with Burlington has seen that as well. There's been more homelessness. I mean, we were a big city for defund the police, and it has repercussions, I think. So it's not like Vermont isn't experiencing some of these issues as well. I've talked about on my channel, I won't go into it too much, but generally I think because of Vermont tends to have more red tape than some of these other states with building, which is why we don't have much supply. And, in the 2008 crash, we didn't see home prices come down quite as much as other states did in other markets. But I won't go too much into that. I've plenty of videos of that on my channel.
Man, we love it. We love a little bit of that. I mean, why not?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah. So basically, like I said, it's a lot harder to build in Vermont than I think some of these other states. When you look at least from the research that I've seen, where a lot of these investors are buying, like in Dallas and Austin, it's regulations are a little bit easier. You can kind of put up neighborhoods like it's nothing. Here in Vermont, I mean, it sounds similar to what you experienced in subdividing in Maryland too. There's a lot of red tape. You could buy some land in Williston right around the Burlington area, and it could be 3 or 4 years before you are able to put a development in. And there's something called Act 250 here in Vermont, which essentially gives any development over, I think they just upped it to 15 homes. But basically the town has the ability to come in and voice their opinions and pretty much stop projects for various reasons. And so a lot of what we've seen in Vermont and why there's so few houses here is, a lot of the people going to these meetings to talk about these regulations and to vote on the developments that could be put in. A lot of these people move to Vermont because there's not many houses here, because they have their space and they have their nice home.
God forbid build anymore. Don't. I moved here because of that.
Yeah, I came from New York City. I don't want Vermont to turn into New York City, and there's a lot of people who are moving away because they don't have a place to buy, which is sad, but it is what's happening. And I guess the more we talk about it, the more likely it is to change. The more we can reach the people who need to hear it.
Do you think it's look, man? Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Gosh.
Tell you
Here
what.
we go.
I mean, seriously.
Good.
I
Ask
mean,
away.
is it ever going back?
No. I mean, realistically, like you said, once the government takes something and they have that power, they don't tend to let it go.
I think, I think that, I think the bigger picture here is, we've got the investors have so much money on the sidelines. I think we would be fooling ourselves if we said, I mean, look, people have to live somewhere, right? And, when you look at, you look at a situation where if something can be controlled, right, like housing, it's a perfect, breeding ground for money to pour into something, right? Because we're dealing with a limited supply. I mean, that's what this is all about. I think it's terrible. We let these prices run the way they have. I mean, look, this has happened before. The government knows that you play with the interest rate to stimulate spending and stimulate the economy. We were at a point in our lives where everything was doing great, right? The housing market was great. Business is great. The stock market is great. Everything is great. I mean, there was more fake money created and printed and circulated. It got extracted now. So now this money is going to the people that can gobble it up the most. Taxes, let's print more money and then let's take it. I mean, think about it. It's a great idea, man. It's a hell of a business concept, right? I mean, it's a mastermind. This is a mastermind project, right? Let's print all this money. Now the insurance companies are going to take, now healthcare, now, pharmaceutical. Now all the, I mean, look, we can charge more money, right? But yet people are getting more divided with the have and have nots. It's becoming impossible. People's bank accounts are extracted. They're emptied. They're depleted. We're taking, debt and credit card debt. And people, Liam, your age, and even 70-year-olds, I mean, the stats, we showed it in last week's video, right? That don't lie, right? The debt. We're starting to see where people like Liam's age, they're graduating college, they're getting jobs. They're like, man, I get paid every 2 weeks, or I get paid once a month, and I need groceries, and I need, I don't know who's dinging, but I need these things, and I'm just going to put them on my credit card, and then my credit card bill comes, and I can't afford to pay it all off, or I won't be able to go to, my friend's wedding that just got married, and now the kids want to get married, and they want to travel all over the country for these bachelor parties, bachelorette parties, and it costing me $2,000 in transportation and this and that and whatever. They're getting further and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into debt. That's the problem. How are they going to afford these prices? What's going to happen? Some people say, and here's the big question, some people say house prices have to crash 40, 50% in order to become affordable, in order to go back to 2019. In order to get back to 2020, we need to see 40, 50% price declines. We've got the government propping up housing. People aren't getting foreclosed on. We're at the lowest foreclosure. But why isn't mainstream media covering this? They want to say, oh my gosh, foreclosures are so low. Oh, this is great. We're landing the plane just like we're supposed to. Foreclosures are so low. Look at the stats. I'll publish the notes. 800 and some thousand applications filed for relief from people that own homes in the first quarter of 2023. Why don't you hear that in the news? That would be when you could answer. You could tell me.
Yeah. Well, that's the beautiful thing about YouTube. Gives people like us a voice and less biases to sift through.
Do people believe us?
Some people do.
I mean, they're like, I had somebody tell me that I didn't have the amount of PhDs. I don't even have a degree, guys. I can save you the freaking hassle, right? I didn't graduate college. I swung a hammer. I've told you that, right? I did contracting work, right? If somebody said, well, why should I listen to anything you have to say? We love Zillow because they have more PhDs. They got freaking bean counters that don't even have a clue of what life is even like in America. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, come on. People are struggling.
People are struggling.
They're struggling.
I mean, the media does not want to go down that road because they do not want a repeat of the great financial crisis. I think that's the whole thing. Is to just sweep it under the rug, kick the can down the road. I mean, we keep on hearing about it.
If you guys see me tomorrow with a patch on my eye, I think I just,
Poked
taking my
yourself?
glasses off, hitting the microphone. I mean, I got to calm
So
down, man. I'm
passionate.
out of control. People might think somebody swung at me. Melissa.
Well, it was
Might
here
say
on
Melissa really,
video.
she took care of you after the podcast.
Oh, goodness.
Patch over my
We did
eye.
have a super cash here that I wanted to bring up.
I love you guys. Can I just
Yes,
say, I
I
love my
know.
audience, man. I love you guys. You guys are amazing.
Yeah.
You're awesome. You come on and you listen to,
Yep. But the sad thing is the younger
Listen to me,
generations
everyone.
want to own a slice of this nation and its future. This crisis creates real generational resentment. Dangerous.
man,
What are your thoughts on that, Liam?
I mean, it's pessimistic. I think I there's a lot of that. There's a lot of resentment out there in the economy. There's a lot of resentment from people who can't buy homes, who are really struggling right now, racking up credit card debt. I mean, how I would probably feel resentful as well at my nation if I was loaded up in credit card debt, about to get hammered with student loans. I can understand how that sentiment's out there, but I think, I'm optimistic. I think that there's brighter days ahead for people who are out there struggling, and I'm a believer that if we got rid of some of this red tape, kind of in general, and just took the storm as it came, we'd come out the other side stronger. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen, because like you mentioned, Todd, the government kind of has their hand in everything and sometimes does more harm than good. But I think if we let the free market do its thing for a little while, it would start to sort itself out.
There's a comment here that actually, because this is a time when it is really important to get creative about what you're going to do for your future. And we were talking about multi-generational housing and what's happening, with the baby boomers. And this viewer made a comment. One thing I pick up from this is there will be more people retiring and they will need in-home care. Me, I'm looking for a second job as a caregiver and to make that extra money. I think more people need to kind of think that way. This obviously is terrible for many people. How are we going to make it better? How are you going to change that around to be able to be profitable and financial in a good position for yourself?
Yeah. Second job as a caretaker it sounds like a great way to make extra money. I mean, I was just thinking about in this, in this conversation, but really we're kind of giving everybody the problems that need to be solved here. We're talking about a lot of different issues, and I think that's where the opportunity is. I mean, really the opportunity is to sift through this red tape and bring some affordable housing, maybe figure out a way to do it where it's not a 2,500 square foot home, like Todd mentioned. Bring something that people can actually buy to the market. And we are seeing that with some different entrepreneurs around the country, with modular homes, people taking storage crates and trying to turn those into homes. I mean, I don't know if it's really going to catch on, but I think there's some good opportunity in the issues and the pain points that we're talking about here.
there are people throughout the country that are living in their cars and they have jobs, but they can't afford a house.
Yeah.
Now, I was just going to say, I think that's a great way to think, but considering where things are now, it's not likely things are going to change. With regulations, we can't have tiny houses. We can't build affordable
They don't
housing
meet
using
code.
shipping containers. Yes,
They don't meet energy code.
exactly. And so it's maybe not, who knows what's going to change. Doesn't look like things move very quickly. I'll tell you one thing is that when we're talking about, DC and the crime, they have city council members here and a mayor, but a city council member here who is one of the supposedly the most progressives that, defund kind of leader. When he was up for re-election, there wasn't one person that ran against him. So what does that say? it means that that's where we are right now, and that's what the people voted for. We're okay, not thinking through the whole thing, what the repercussions are going to be.
Yeah, we got to think about the people that are supporting them financially to help them to get to where they are. And I think that's, that's a lot of what we're dealing with. When I was, and I haven't done this for a while, but when I was rehabbing houses, this was kind of like after the '08 crash, because, I was building houses when the last collapse, and it was bad. I mean, it was, and that's what a lot of people don't understand, is that if you hadn't lived through that period of time, housing had never collapsed like it did before. And people want to say that it never happened again. And the problem is that I don't believe that that's true. I don't think that that's true, that it never happened again, because if we look at, a lot of it is just the fact that you can only prop things up for so long before you have a collapse. So you can only, subsidize something before it doesn't work anymore. And, as these systems break down and we have some kind of a reset, we get even deeper. But what a lot of people don't realize is when they started talking about the overpriced housing market or the lack of affordability, it was in 2005. That's when they started talking about it. It wasn't in 2008. And as a builder and a developer, you felt that starting then, 2005, 2006. Even though the peak had just happened in 2006, it didn't catch up to people because they were like, oh, like things are great. Oh, I can afford this and whatever. But what happened was, once it started to go, it wasn't just the no-doc loan collapse. It was that the system that they had built collapsed, right? What that was allowed to happen, derivatives of the loans. It was the bank trouble, right? It was the bank collapse. So does propping it up prevent that from happening again? That's the question, right? And, how far can the bailouts save until it just fails anyway? And where's the next, blowout? So when you have a bubble that keeps building and building and building, but by 2008, so 2005, it took 3 years before we started to see the blood in the streets, until it was 2008, 2009, 2010, to where we started seeing a major fallout. This was years and years and years. Housing doesn't just happen overnight. We're propping people up more than we ever have. We're bailing people out more than we ever have. Shy of that bailout, we would be worse than the financial collapse of 2008. Has nothing to do with the people that should have loans or shouldn't have loans back then. It's the same thing as right now. You still have people that shouldn't have loans. You have mounting debt that's happening. The difference is the only thing that the government learned back then is we're going to bail them out quicker. Because Bernanke said, "No, man, this will never happen. We'll never have a housing collapse. It won't happen." It happened. Right? At what point do we say people can't afford it? How long does it take for that to catch up? We're already starting to see it here in Maryland, where people are putting their foot down. And we can say houses are still selling for over list price, but the list price is still not what it was a year and a half ago. We're not seeing, okay, let me ask you something. Are you seeing every deal that has an escalation clause, or every deal that has a overappraised value gap addendum? Are you seeing where people are spending $150,000 over appraised value for a house? Are you still seeing that, Howard?
Not 150. I mean, I just saw 2 weeks ago, a house in DC was listed for, just down the street, for $900,000, and it sold in 1 weekend for $1,050,000.
That's not what I asked.
What do you ask?
I asked if you're seeing appraisal gap contingencies where someone will pay 50 grand over an appraised value, 10,000, 5,000.
No, never.
Are you seeing them anymore?
No.
So is that a correction?
Well, yes.
100%.
Sure.
I mean, come on. People are saying that the housing market hasn't changed from a year ago. It has. It's going down. It's going to keep going down. The frenzy is over, guys. Wake up. It's over. If people say they disagree with me, that's fine. You can disagree with me. But what did Howard just say? We were seeing appraisal gap addendums like never before. Like we saw people out at restaurants. People were out partying, spending money, out with their buddies, out with their friends. Everything was great. Well, that got stopped. So just when we say, okay, well, they got $50,000 over asking price on a $950,000, $1 million house, that's nothing. Because number one, we'd have to know what the details are. And that's the problem in America. And I'm not saying it's a problem with you, Howard. Don't get me wrong. I love you guys. You guys are great. You're on our broker network. By the way, guys, these guys are on our preferred broker network. These agents we respect. We know they do a good job. They have top ratings. And you can check them out. They're on our website. You can click on where they are. You can look at their bios. You can learn about them. You can hire them, to represent you. And I think that if you did, you'd be represented by some of the top of the top. Right. But my point is the problem with us is we're not having the right conversation. Because if people really knew that it's a different housing market than it was a year ago, you'd say it's gone down. And all the comments want to say, well, not in my neighborhood. It's still selling. Things are selling. The prices have come down, guys. It's hard to compare apples to apples of a median price sale when you don't even know what to compare it to. You would have to analyze the data, which is cooked. You would have to analyze the data. We know house inventory is increasing. It's not where it should be. We know days on the market has gone up. We know affordability and buyers are sidelined like they haven't been in decades. We know that there's more bailouts, and we'd have tens and hundreds of thousands of foreclosures that we would be seeing right now that we're not seeing because people are still being bailed out, right? We're seeing people that are getting ready. They're panicked. They're saying we have to pay off this student loan debt for these people because they haven't even considered these loans in the last 3 years. They have forgotten all about them, and they're hoping that we pay them off. And guys, we're going to add to this problem because guess what? The average forbearance for student loans are people that have had their loans for 20 to 25 years. Take that by average. These are people that are 38, 40 years old, 42 years old, 44 years old. These are homeowners. These are homeowners that they have not had to pay their student loan debt, which is $100,000 in some cases. Now they're going to have to start making those payments again. That's the conversation, right? When we're having these real conversations with buyers and they're going, man, I can't afford a home. I'm sorry I bought my home because now the heating and air system has gone up. We got to start talking. And I'm not talking about you guys, but I'm saying we need to start talking straight to people and wake people up and say, you need to cut the debt. You need to stop the spending. You need to reel it in, right? It's not about what your friends have because you don't even know what they have. They have a sick stomach. And you want one too, and you don't even know because nobody's telling you. They're just saying, oh, this is great. Job market is strong. Things are happening, guys. They're spending money. The economy's still good. They're $1 trillion in credit card debt. How do you equate that to spending money and keeping the economy going? I'm talking to vendors. I'm talking to contractors that are slowing down. I'm seeing people that put their projects on hold. They want new bathrooms. They're not doing them. Right? I mean, you guys, are you seeing it? Am I the only one seeing it?
No, for sure. I'm seeing the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, money's tighter. The market has certainly changed from a year ago. Absolutely.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you, Todd, that is something that I've seen that I guess as somebody who didn't, really, obviously I didn't really live through the great financial crisis in the same way that you did. When I look back, I see a lot of building that took place leading up into 2008, and I see inventory. I mean, obviously inventory is rising from its lows now, but we're still well below where inventory was in 2005, heading into the '08 crash. And How do you think that plays into all this?
The oversupply back then.
Yeah, the oversupply. Back
I
then
think it's. I
versus
think
what we
it's.
have now.
I think it's still there. I think there's more ghost inventory than we've ever had. I think more people own Airbnbs that are sitting there vacant 90% of the time, 80% of the time. I think people have vacation properties that they bought, during the pandemic. I think a lot of people moved out of cities and they bought houses, second houses. I think that there's a lot of investors that have people that they, have spent a long time trying to get people evicted. We're starting to see investors put houses on the market that you would have never dreamt that they would have done before. More people, are living alone for the first time ever in the history. We didn't have people buying houses and living by themselves. So, you're starting to look at as the financial noose is kind of tightening here, right? And people are starting to realize that, hey, this is really expensive. Costs are going up. My insurance rates went up 25%. My taxes have gone up significantly. My expenses, my repairs to put a roof on my house, to fix anything, to buy a refrigerator. And you start thinking about all these expenses and the cost of doing things. And then we looked at salaries haven't gone up 33% at best in 23 years. That's a serious problem. 159% increase in housing cost in just the house itself in 23 years, but yet salaries haven't gone up. And now we're starting to see downward pressure on salaries, right? I mean, the Fed said it. Don't take it from me. He said they're seeing the job market softening, right? We're seeing people that are being rehired. They're being let go and they're being rehired for less money. We're seeing people renegotiate their contracts, right? It's not sustainable. Right. And then, I saw some crazy report about, and I'm not knocking UPS drivers, but how much money they make. Right. And now they're going to strike or talking about striking. Right. They make more money than, if we looked at median income, $90,000 in DC, and that's the highest in the country. So, but when we talk about housing inventory, I am not one that believes that we have a housing inventory shortage. I think that we have a situation where we have investors that have bought up this inventory to just sit on it. Canada buys so much inventory here in the U.S. because their real estate is so expensive that they can't have it as an investment. China buys up our land here and buying up houses in crazy, numbers. You go down the coastlines of, these multi-million-dollar houses, go to Reddington Beach, North Reddington Beach, go to Boca Raton, go to all these areas where you have some of the most expensive real estate. These houses are sitting empty. Right? We have an inventory. We don't have an inventory shortage. I can go down to Baltimore City alone and I could not count the amount of board ups and houses that are down in Baltimore City. We have a problem that investors won't come there. Right? I mean, we have tens and tens of thousands of board ups in Baltimore City. That is not a housing shortage. Right? We don't have a housing shortage. We have a housing for sale shortage. And we have something that has been a runaway train where these prices for houses are ridiculous. Let me tell you something. I was looking at a house the other day. Man, not too far away from here. It was $575,000. I wouldn't have given you $250,000 for it 5 years ago. And I'm like, are you kidding me? $575,000. Over $500,000 for this dump. It needs everything. It's an everything house. It needs everything. It needs new bathrooms. It needs a new kitchen. It needs new flooring. It needs new lighting. It needs updating in every way that you look. And it's $575,000. I'm going, whoa. I mean, this is, hey, keep it. How's that? Keep it. Keep it, right? I mean, at what point do the buyers say, keep it?
Hey, Todd.
I think the buyers are at that point.
So in Baltimore, we have all those board ups. Why aren't they being put on the market, and who owns them? I mean, or how do they get back on the market?
Well, I mean, the city owns a lot. I mean, you believe me, I could go down a path that I just, we don't have time to talk about it tonight. But I mean, it's, come on, man. We make the news everywhere. I mean, what was I saying? So I have a family member that moved and they're like, man, and they're like, man, when I turn on my TV, all I hear is Baltimore, 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 Baltimore. This happened, that happened, that happened. We like hit the headline news. We have a beautiful city. Baltimore's a beautiful city. It's a harbor. And let me tell you, we have a harbor. We have a beautiful harbor. It costs so much money to get into the city, to come into our harbor, our port, that people will go around all the way up to New Jersey to bring their goods in and truck them and put them on a train instead of bringing them into Baltimore because it costs so much money to come in, right? I mean, I could go on and on and on. I mean, it's, but yet we've got a money printing machine and a business, that charges whatever and does there is no balanced budget. They don't have to balance a budget. We got, it's a situation, but I'm telling you, and I know a lot of guys don't agree with what I'm saying, but I think it's come to a head. I think it's not sustainable. I think the housing market is going to continue to spiral down. I don't think we're going to see. I talked to a loan officer today, and she said to me, well, because I asked her, I said, well, what do you think that will break these sellers up to get them to get their, well, it's two things. They're going, wow, man, I missed the boat. I should have sold my house a year and a half ago because now it's not worth as much. You can argue the fact it's not. You're not going to get the multiple offers. You're not getting somebody to pay you over an appraised value. That ship has sailed, right? So now guess what? You're going to have to fix stuff. So you can argue with me all day long. When I hear people that are calling me up and they're saying, hey, Todd, I bought this house in Cleveland and whatever, and my contract price is this or that or whatever, or I'm a seller and I'm wondering, should I take the offer? And I'm going, well, the buyer's buying it. Okay, well, you wanted $675. They offered you $620. Okay, should I take it? Well, what's the rest of the details with the contract? Did they want a home inspection? Oh, yeah. We want a home inspection. They want a home inspection. So now sellers have missed the mark. They're not getting over appraised value. They've lived in a house for 20 years. They've done nothing. And now they're going to expect to sell it for top dollar. Nope. The buyers are going, nah, it needs too much work, right? I mean, we want you to fix stuff. So now they got to fix stuff. So when we're talking about housing prices, and we're talking about contract prices, and we're talking about not my town, things are selling over, not my town. I don't know what you're talking about, Todd, because this isn't happening. You're a crash bro. Guess what? Are they fixing the things now? Well, yeah, they're fixing stuff. Oh, gee, that wasn't done a year and a half ago. Are they giving you over appraised value gap contingencies? No. Oh, well, that was happening a year ago, wasn't it? Yeah. Well, that was happening again. So the fact is the market's changing because buyers are like, oh, hell no. We're not doing this. We're not playing this game. I'm not going to go in and buy a house and give you the top money. You haven't done anything. You haven't done anything to your house. And now you're going to fix stuff or I'm going to walk away from my contract. And guess what, guys? After 2 weeks of being on the market, you got nothing. You got nothing. You're seeing all your buyers come through in the first 2 weeks. And I talk to people all over the country. Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't scripted, right? I have agents all over the country that I talk to. I talk to buyers all over the country. I talk to sellers all over the country because of this show. And I'm telling you, the answer is it's different. In 2 weeks, it's crickets. It's crickets. You're either selling it right away with multiple offers or it's sitting and you're doing price reductions. Right. So that's different. And it's only a year and a half into it. And it's not even quite a year and a half because really it was like June of 22 is when we really kind of peaked. So now here we are a little bit past a year mark and we're starting to see a completely different market. But I was talking to this loan officer. I said, well, what do you think? She said, well, I think if we get the mortgage rates down to 5% again, that these sellers will start selling and the buyers start buying. I'm going, oh, when's that going to happen? I mean, you guys think that's going to happen?
Well,
not anytime soon.
Well, in the most recent press conference, the rate hike, Jerome Powell, what he said, his words were that they expect inflation by their metrics, which we could argue that all day, but they expect that to be down to 2% by 2025 for what they're projecting. He said that if we hold rates until they hit 2%, if we keep rates where they are until they hit 2%, that would be a mistake. So they said that they're projecting cutting rates at some point in 2024. Now, how that's going to affect the mortgage market, that's anyone's guess.
It's at 8% now. So I think it would be fair to say that a good rate would be 6.5%.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if we could get back to a 6.5% rate, that would be well below normal in the 50-year average. At 7.77% 50-year average. I think if we could get to 6.5% or 6.8% for good, I mean, come on, we're charging good borrowers more money now. I mean, if you have perfect credit, you're paying more in loan fees to, they'll argue, well, that's not really true, but it is. But if we get to 6.5%, it's still a game changer. Guys, if we drop the rates right now to 6.5% tomorrow, they still can't afford the price of the home.
Yeah. No, and then the bigger thing too, what really has to happen, I think, you mentioned at the beginning of this video, how many people were locked into a mortgage under 6% or under 5% or under 4%. We got to get the mortgage rate low enough to where these people who are locked into a low rate, it makes sense for them to sell. I mean, it's not going to make sense at 6.5.
Oh yeah. By the way, you've owned your house for 10 years. You paid, 50% less, 60% less than what the houses are selling for now. And you refinanced for 3.75% because that was the refinance rate, not the new rate. The new rate, purchase rate, was 2.75%, but you could get a refi for 3.74, 3.67, right? If you're hitting them in the low marks. And by the way, you go to sell that house, they ain't selling that house, man. They're going to give that house to their kids. They're like, man, well, I'm going to sell my house. Yeah, I've got so much equity, but what am I going to buy? And you know what's coming down the pike, and I wanted to ask you this, Howard, because something that we haven't talked about tonight, and I know it's getting late. This is a great show. I mean, we'll go a couple more minutes, and then we'll cut it off, answer a couple more questions. But what are you seeing with, because a lot of people, I had a podcast and a lot of people I brought up Airbnb, man. And I'll tell you what, I had like freaking, man, I was garage. I think I lost like 30 subscribers.
I know. I don't like that.
I gained like 600, but I lost 30, right? Because I said the words Airbnb. And they're like, Airbnbs are destroying the neighborhoods,
terrible.
right? And I wasn't really caring about whether you have an Airbnb or not. I was just saying I didn't think the government should be able to step in and take away your property rights until you can't have a rental, right? I mean, that's what I was really talking about, right? And, we just give them an inch and they take a mile always. But what do you think about these accessory dwelling units that are now legal in D.C.? It's a West Coast thing that's coming across the country, taking it by storm. Maryland would like to see accessory dwelling units approved in all counties, including the city of Baltimore. It's already legal in Montgomery County as of a couple years ago. And these accessory dwelling units, you can basically have a rental in your home, and it doesn't have to be a blood relative, and so long as you're the owner, occupant, and stuff like that. But a lot of people, they don't even realize they don't want Airbnbs, but these accessory dwelling units are going to put cars in the streets. They're going to put, because they can park cars in the streets, so people are going to be like, what? The neighborhood, the streets filled up with cars. Now I have renters in the neighborhood and right next to my, pool or my, whatever. What do you think about that, Howard? How is accessory dwelling units changing D.C.? Do you think that's a good thing?
Well, DC is a little different, I think, because it's so compact. We don't have a lot of single family homes with pools and yards and that kind of stuff. It's all older buildings, like most inner cities. And for years, people have been renting out their places, even illegally. They don't tell anyone, and it's been a standard thing. So there's been new laws to restrict short-term rentals, but frankly, most people do their own thing and ignore those laws as far as building or renting out places within their homes, like an English basement.
Yeah, but it's harder to enforce now.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the homeowners, they're making money from it. And
Here's what happened. I bought a house one time. It was a 2-unit dwelling. And, I was young. I mean, I didn't know. I mean, I thought it was a 2-unit dwelling. I actually found out, it had 2 rental licenses. Then I found out that rental license doesn't even mean anything because the 2 departments in the county didn't talk to one another. And you could get a rental license without actually them checking with zoning to see whether it was even allowed. And the house had 2 meters even. And I ended up getting it permitted, because it was built that way, but it went through the process and stuff like that. But, a lot of people now that have illegal units, if they're not allowed, they get shut down. And, but now people can do it illegally and be like, well, it's legal. I just don't want to go through the regulation process. And then when they finally get caught, they can't stop them because it's allowed. But here's the thing, and, and I get it. We do a lot here in Maryland, too, where they're illegal 2- and 3-unit dwelling places. But, now on the West Coast, they are saying that you don't have to be an owner-occupant anymore. And now they're saying that you don't just have to put 1 apartment. You can put 3 apartments in your single-family house, right? So turn a single-family house into 3 apartments. So my point is what comes from the West Coast, or starts in the West Coast, makes its way to the East Coast, right? So with these things, I mean, do you think that accessory dwelling units are a good thing?
well,
That's
I think
not
they're
a trick
good.
question. I just want to know.
I think they're a good thing in terms of allowing more people to hopefully have affordable housing. I don't think there's a lot of space to build ADUs. But I think a lot of people converting part of their house into affordable housing for people is a good thing.
They might have to
That's right.
keep their
Especially
mortgage.
with mortgage rates the way they are. That's right.
But you know what's going to happen? There's going to be fees involved to become a ADU. You're going to have to pay licensing fees. You're going to have to get inspections. You're going to have to do a whole lot of things to come into compliance. Your insurance is going to go up
That's all true.
because you have a tenant now. And
As well.
more people.
As long
More
as the
liability.
government's involved. You're right.
Yeah. I wonder if they're going to have accessory dwelling units on Foxhall.
I don't think so.
You guys don't go looking that up. Come on now. Don't be silly. Don't go looking that up. Foxhall Street.
You know they're
Huh?
going to.
Man,
You know
we
they
just shot
are.
a video on Foxhall. $16 million. It's going to publish it. in 2
Maybe
weeks.
Bezos will have a couple units in his mansion.
Yeah. Hey, you guys, right. You're going to have some accessory dwelling units in your house. I think they got, I'm not going to say it. Anyway. What we got? A couple more questions and we'll wrap it up.
I want you to address this one, Todd. Earlier, you thought everyone should be able to own a home. However, once you discussed foreclosures, you were quick to say that not everyone should be a homeowner and they can rent.
Hey, man, look, everyone should be able to, I said, have a safe roof over their head. I didn't say everybody should own a home. There are some people that, look, I'd love for everybody to everyone to own a home. But I mean, if you're just starting out in life, you may not be able to own a home. Look, if we went back prior to, and I reference World War II a lot because, in the early days before we had a lot of government intervention to where the government comes in and says they're here to help and then things just go crazy and out of control, I think that I'm not anti-government. I don't want you guys to think that. I'm not. Right. But a government was originally created to protect us, not to supply us with, our stipend and our breadcrumb and our, we'll keep things so that, we're going to, control everything, right, in every aspect of our life. But guys, back in the day, if you bought a house prior to World War II, you put down 50%. And you financed your home for 5 to 6 years. Look it up, right? And, I think that people don't save enough. Let's go now. Let's graduate college. Let's get a job. Let's buy a house because that's the next thing to do because I don't want to waste my money renting. Some people, it's not a waste. Some people aren't ready to buy a home. Some people, they don't spend well. We're not teaching financial literacy. What I'm saying is that there are a lot of people that are in homes that probably would have a way better life and less stress and be healthier if they just let it go. If they just said, I had a guy I knew that was in the IRS, and his job was basically to come down on people that owed money. In this particular instance, he was in an enforcement where when employers got behind in their paying payroll taxes, he would go in and say, hey, you can't do that. You can't spend your employees' payroll taxes because it's not really yours. It's theirs, the employees. And he said that, he would go in and he would, try and put these workout plans for the companies. And he said that sometimes he had to shut them down. Sometimes he would have to say, like, look, I'm going to close your business down. And he said, sometimes when he did that, people were actually grateful because they didn't know how to cut it off. They didn't know how to end the pain. They didn't know how to get a better start, to get a better life. And sometimes we have to own the mistakes that we have, accept them, and move forward and get beyond it. Right? So sometimes for some people, they will have a much healthier life. They're living in a house that has mold. They're living in a house that rains inside. They're living in a house that doesn't have an operating heating and air system, right? They can't afford to fix the siding is falling down. I mean, the fence is falling down. I mean, these things are happening around them. It's imploding around them, right? For some people, giving them a bailout is not the answer to what they need to get moving in a positive direction. We are not helping people sometimes by bailing them out. I'm not saying that people don't need a leg up. But if it's 25 years later, guys, you have to say, how are we helping people accelerate in our society, right? And that's my point. So, I mean, I don't know if that's the answer, Jefferson Johns, that you want to hear, but I think at some point we need to stop and say enough's enough. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Is that too hard?
No.
I mean, is that too hard? I mean, is that being mean? I mean, it's a valid question.
I think it was well put.
You're a young guy. I mean, look, you're coming out of this. You don't have it easy. The comment earlier was that the younger generation is mad at the older generation. It's your fault. Well, you know what? You're 100% right. I guess it is our fault. Because back then, we were forced to cut the grass. Back then, we were forced to work. Back then, we were forced to walk. Right? So you're 100% right. What this generation has done, unfortunately, is my generation, is we've babied people. We've coddled them and said, well, we don't want them to have the life that we have. We want them to have a better life. We want to take care of them. And as a result of that, you're angry. You're angry. We should have made you angry when you were a kid. That's what we should have done. We should have not talked about 12th place trophies. Right? We should have not talked about that. We should have been honest. We should have said, life's not what you think it may be. Everything's not great. Vacations don't happen every single year for everybody. Anyway.
They love it. You're giving the people what they love.
Laptop. Everybody loves your laptop. Guys, I thank you so much for sharing the screen with me tonight. We have a couple let's talk about our super chats here. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll go through these.
Let's talk about their comments.
One thing that will be interesting to watch is the health status and fallout of the folks dealing with the stress from the working class.
Well, if you ask a counselor, they'll say everybody needs one, right? You ask a social worker or some type of psychologist or psychiatrist, they'll say that everybody needs one. Mm-hmm. I think we do have some major issues, and that's a deeper issue, right? I think
it is.
The internet has done us no favors, and besides YouTube. Mm-hmm. YouTube's done us favors. But thank you for your super chat.
Thank you very much. And got another one here. This is not where any of us are, but thoughts on the New Jersey market. Do you think New Jersey and New York are impervious to the crash?
No. No. In fact, we have a broker friend in New York City, right? He said it's completely different than what it was prior to COVID.
Yeah.
It's actually not even a, you take your life into your own hands at some points, in New York City nowadays. It's not what it used to be. People are
Yeah.
moving out. They've mass exodus from New York City, right? More domestic migration out of New York City than I think many states. I don't think anything is impervious to a crash. The definition would be, what does a crash look like? And I think, as we said before, when we're looking at a lot of the situations in the housing market, by definition, we have seen a significant crash just by the reasons we described earlier.
There was a question here. I do want to ask you before we go, guys, about your markets. Bear with me. I am going to get.
Did we address all the super chats, Joe?
Yeah, we got them. We got all the super chats. But there was a question about days on market, kind of comparing. Bear with me one moment.
Well, while she's looking for that, guys, I tell you, if you are in DC, you're in Vermont, you're in Maryland, you got them right here on your screen, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly reach out, check these guys out, visit their YouTube channels. We're going to make sure that all their links are, by the when we close this thing out, or in the show notes. Please reach out to them, subscribe to their channels. Show them some love. I mean, not everybody has, we're very fortunate for the growth that we've had on our YouTube channel, but that doesn't mean that these creators aren't putting out great content and educating you and doing everything that they possibly can. So, thank you guys for sharing the
Yes.
stream tonight.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But a real quick question
Appreciate it.
about your area specifically. Question, how old is the average house that's on the MLS?
That's a good question.
Ooh.
I'll have
Anybody
you
do that?
take that one first, Liam.
Yeah, so
Are
that
they
would
talking
be
about days on market, or are they talking about?
I originally thought it was days on market, but I actually think they're talking about,
on the MLS right now.
on the MLS right now.
Yeah.
Well,
Boy. That's
I mean,
a great
I guess
question.
age. Are we talking about age of home? Like built in what year? I mean, built in what year? There's a bunch of homes. There's a bunch of new homes that kind of make up the overall MLS. But of the homes that regularly sell, it's probably in the 70s, I'd say, for the average. Average days on market in Vermont, I have it right here, throughout the whole state. 7 days. 7 days on market right now.
How about you, Howard?
I was actually just looking at this as well, and the average has been, for the past 90 days, it's been 6 days, and for the past 180 days, it's been 7 days. Average age of houses, that's a tough one, because houses here range from 1880 to 2023, so somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, as of June 10th, 2022, the median age of a home in the U.S. is 39 years old, but that doesn't give us the answer to the housing market. It's interesting because, there's been a lot of city, booming areas in major states and cities in America, and a lot of the housing is newer homes within the last 10 to 15 years. But, the issue that we have in Baltimore is that we are an older, built state, right? We had a lot of early settler migration here. I know, like in Elk Ridge, we're going back 1700s, Baltimore City, 1800s. We have a lot of inventory here that's several hundred years old. So, I think that it depends on the states. But it's a good question. I don't know. The housing market can't even give us stats from 2 weeks ago, let alone, stats today.
Right.
Guys, how frustrating is it with our MLS? We got to spend our life trying to mine data. It's all backward looking. We can't even get in, smart charts, which is something I'm sure you guys have. I know, Howard, you have it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you have smart charts in Vermont.
No.
But it's, or you probably have the equivalent, but basically it's not published until the 16th of the month for the prior month. So we have another half a month of data that we're not even able to accurately depict because of the how long it takes to get that information. It's been a frustration of mine too, because I think that, it should be like the stock market, right? We should be able to
Real
see
time.
in real time the data that's happening as the data is being entered in the
Yeah.
MLS, and they should really open up the MLS so that we have access to it as paid subscribers. But I mean, we know that things. National Association of Realtors. I don't know, what was it? Was it 3.9 million the CEO makes, something like that? The National Association of Realtors. We've got I don't know, over 1,000 MLSs in the United States. They're all owned right by the local boards, which fund the National Association of Realtors, the State Association of Realtors, the local Association of Realtors. But somehow all this data gets aggregated to everybody else except us, faster and better. And they've got all these programs that we find ourselves going to Zillow or Realtor.com to get a lot of the data, so that and that's free compared to the data that we pay for. But that's not a popular topic anyway. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for your time this Tuesday night. We love you. Check out our panel online. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, would appreciate it if you did so now. You could smash that thumbs up button. It will let you know, or let us know on the like button. You could smash that one and let us know that you like the video, but you could smash the alert bell and you'll know every time we go live or upload content just like this, guys. Howard?
Thank you for the opportunity to talk.
You got it, man.
Thank you guys for having me. Thank you to everyone who's out there listening. It's been a pleasure.
And Melissa?
Indeed.
Thank you guys both very, very much. It was really great to have you on. Thank you for being a part of our network, and reach out to them. We encourage you if you need help in their area, please. And Todd, thanks for another great show.
We appreciate you guys. Until next week, we will see you soon.
See you soon.